Cool. So let's move into what you actually do right now, and can you speak a bit more about the interviews and how are you going about trying to really capture the bottom up ideas for innovation?
Well, we go about the interviews. They're 1 hour long, and we combine them, and we maybe as you go along in the interview series, as you do, you twist a little bit of the questions that you put in, because you learn along the line, and you want to see, well, does B agree with A that we talked to previously, and what are the surprises that come up?
Predefined like a set of questions at least you try to have, and then you twist them as you.
And could you give some examples of what are we talking about? Rounding one topic, breaking it down to process dimension or like organization.
No,
how is it phrased?
We're much more open.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we talk about implementation of new knowledge and research, what do you see? How do you do it today?
How do you do it today? How could we do it?
Yeah. And
open-ended.
Yeah. And always end with a question about, if we take away all restraints, all boundary conditions, what would you like to do?
That's a good one.
Yeah. And also, if you were on Jeopardy, what would be your favorite questions? But then going bottom up, what we're doing now is also trying to find the systematic way in all our different teams and functions. So who is our main point of contact and the responsible in that organization for capturing this? Because we're 12 people. And the Karolinska
Center for Innovation.
Yeah, and Karolinska is 15,000 plus people, so we're less than 0.1%.
But could we how we do this? Yeah. There is a very key mini theme here. Mm-hmm. How is innovation, or how is your team organized? And then maybe a little bit, you said you actually have a matrix organization in Karolinska. Yeah. So there are some fundamental context how this works in Karolinska. So for anyone to sort of understand and get inspired, they kind of need to understand some of the context. Yeah. Could you elaborate?
If I start with the Center for Innovation.
Yes.
We're a fairly diverse group and have always been. So there's a couple of engineers, as myself, a couple of economists, a journalist, a legal person, a financial person, and a nurse, and all these different types of people. A couple of natural scientists, 3 of them with PhDs, and
diverse team is number one.
Yes, with diverse personalities as well. That's always fun. And how do we then go about this? Well, we do trainings a lot. So for the last
training, you mean inside the team, or
no,
also for people outside?
For the hospital,
giving methods and frameworks and approaches.
Yes.
To the 15,000, so to speak, or to the middle managers, or
that too.
You don't say middle managers in hospital.
We say we're right now. We have 2 implemented sets. One for anyone really, which focuses very much on design thinking, service design principles. So how do we teach that? How do we take up what they want to bring into this course, which is maybe 4-month long thing with a number of modules, and you take something with you into it that you work with.
So basically, one way of teaching or getting people to better understand this is you need to have an idea to bring in here that we can work on.
Or an insight or a need.
Or a need.
Yeah.
An opportunity. Innovation starting point.
Yep. Somewhere to start. Then we also have, and we've trained about 120 people there. Then more recently, we started looking at, we also need to have the managers here. So we've set in a collaboration with our leadership development team, which resides within HR, to say just innovation for leaders and managers. So you don't have to be formally a manager with staff responsibility. You can be someone who leads people in doing things. How do you lead the innovation work? And that Here we're still developing the content of that, but of course you need to have the principles of the tools for innovation. Maybe you add a little bit of strategy to it. We add a little bit of legal to it. We add a little bit of how do you collaborate with industry to it. Maybe how do you find funding? We add a little bit of that to it.
Because I think it's connected to, I mean, if you take other, I've been in the tech sector all my life, but we have a lot of, initiatives also in big tech companies trying to say, we really want bottom-up innovation. And we have things like hack weeks or hack days, every Friday you do that and things like that. But even if some people come up with really awesome ideas, to actually make them happen is still really hard. If you, for example, now in the interviews you are having with people in different clinical themes, come up with an awesome idea, how do you make that idea come to life?
Now, we also combine these interviews with a very tight dialogue with our CFO, because this has to go into also our, let's say, investment process, budgeting and investment process. Normally, things grow from, okay, so you have this idea. Let's see, does your boss agree? Number one. You can have as many good ideas, and they might very well be true, but if your local environment does not agree, it will not happen. How can you then find time to work with this? And different areas have different cultures. So let's say, for example, the emergency department at Karolinska in Huddinge, they've worked systematically with this for quite some time and have actually had they are the number one unit to go through the innovation ambassador trainings, because they found that this was a really good way to keep people.
Right. That's an awesome comment, I think.
Yeah. To increase the joy of work, to increase satisfaction, and a lot of good things came out of that.
I think that's so true, by the way. I wish more companies thought about that. Yeah. If you can actually encourage people to innovate themselves, this will be a really source of keeping people happy and
energizing, motivation,
and improving your organization at the same time.
That's almost a side effect.
But the tricky point, of course, is you're alluding to it here. This systematic approach.
Yes.
So, let me challenge you. Or not challenge you, but come with this quote here. Daniel Lewis, who actually joined here, he has a many years background working with product innovation in Ericsson, and now he works with Sierra Mobile, 5G, cutting edge stuff in that area. And we know each other from way back. So he knows the stuff we did at Ericsson. He participated in one of my trainings. And we always talked about this in a beer in our hand, sort of, and his idea was like this: you cannot systemize innovation. There is no systematic innovation, period. Innovation comes from the janitor, it comes from everywhere. And then I always argued, this is exactly what we did in the training. You loved the training. We did this product lifecycle management. It was from innovation to end of life. And then he said something that I want to test on you now. He said, but Henrik, what you did with the systematic approach was a systematic approach to industrialization from idea to production. So basically, what we do in Ericsson, what we are really, really good at is we have these ideas, but we have figured out the industrial way, how we weed out the bad ideas, how we get the funding, how we do the beta, how we then take it into, So his idea was basically, for him, innovation was the inbox. That's it, right? The rest was an industrialization process. How do you feel about that statement? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't agree.
Yeah, good. Why not?
Because number one, the inbox, if you dissect an idea, which is what the inbox is, the idea comes with a semi expression of what your need is, and a semi-expression of what your solution to that need
Absolutely
is.
Right.
And if you don't separate them, so need or opportunity from solution, then you will get tangled up. You will fall in love with your solution, instead of your problem.
Yes.
And it's your problem that you should fall in love with, and be really unfaithful to the solutions.
No, I actually agree with you, but I want to stay a little bit on the other side.
Yeah.
But what you're trying to say here now is that if you're not having a systematic approach how to get this vague idea and dress it in the right way first, it's very easy to end up somewhere else.
If you don't know what problem you're solving,
Yeah.
then you will end up with more headaches than you have. Actually, we have I forgot to say, we have a service designer, one of the only ones who've written a dissertation on service design in healthcare, actually in Sweden.
That's cool.
Yeah, and she has her coffee mug that says, "If this is the solution to the problem, I'd rather keep my problem."
It's another T-shirt, I think.
Yeah, it is. But in German. So
in German. If this is, say it again.
If this is the solution to my problem, then I'd rather keep my problem. And that, by that we mean that if we don't understand what we're addressing, what we're trying to achieve very properly before we start solving it, then we might very well have side effects or very unwanted repercussions, especially in healthcare, which is, and I've built control system for nuclear power plants. This is by far the most complex thing you can do.
But now you're really triggering me to what's wrong with the whole data and AI industry.
Okay.
Because you see where I'm going with that one, that we're selling tech instead of solving problems. But let's not go there right now.
Yeah.
I love it. I like that.
I want to have that T-shirt,
I like it. But
I'll talk to Anna and see what.
But you just give me ammunition when I talk to Daniel at the next barbecue we're going to have, because I think I think he has a point, right? But the systematic way how you dress up the problem is not to be taking light-hearted.
No, it's not. And I've actually, so we do a number of these types of workshops and post-it things on what is it that you're really trying to accomplish here.
Mm-hmm.
And never, and I'm saying never, have we ended up with the proposed solution, or the actually coming back to what we thought first was the problem is what we are then addressing. Never.
Yeah, that's so interesting. First principle thinking in that
First
ways.
principle thinking also.
Okay, so just finally closing up the whole idea, how do you make this happen? And bottom up is one approach, but top down, I think we know, people are simply, they come up with ideas, but I think to really make bottom up happen is really hard.
Yeah.
And then potentially some people come up with a really good idea. Hopefully you can get along and convince your boss or line manager that this is actually something we should invest in. You have the funding for it and perhaps collaborate with industry and whatnot. But still, even in my experience, it's really hard to make it happen. Do you feel the same? Do you still see the hard thing of making bottom-up innovation come to life?
It depends a little bit on what type of innovation we're talking about. I would say it's always hard to sort of frame what are we addressing here, and then it comes to what are your colleagues like, what's the culture like, how's your boss. But we have a number of stories, I would say, where it's gone fairly well.
Could you give a single example of a good story? I think a lot of people would love to hear a concrete example of, this was a bottom-up innovation that made possible.
Well, it took some time, but we've been working a lot with heart failure. And heart failure is a very bad disease. It's got higher mortality rate than most cancer types and so on. And we worked, let's say, a company came to Karolinska and they looked at us and saying, we are selling heart pumps. A heart pump is something you get sort of as an intermediary step before you get a heart transplant.
Right.
So you're fairly sick. And Karolinska, you're putting in a lot fewer heart pumps than your comparable hospitals in Europe. Why is that? Oh, damn, we should be putting in more heart pumps. And we see that our heart failure patients live haven't increased their longevity over the past decade. Even though there's better medication, there's been a lot of research, we have a lot better knowledge. Maybe that's because we're not putting in enough heart pumps. So we should put in more heart pumps. And why didn't we do that? When we went down and we looked at it and said, it looks like we're not finding patients in time. They're too sick to have this procedure. Why is that then? Well, maybe because we don't find them when they come to the ER or other things. So we need to educate people, and we started to do that. And long story short, a lot of things happened, and among them, we actually interviewed both staff and patients, asking, do you want to be able to care for yourself? Staff said that 98% of staff said, yes, we think that patients want to be able to care for themselves. Only half patients said, yes, I want to be involved in my own therapy. Maybe because the rest were too sick to be able to do it. And of course, we're all different persons. Now, in this, we saw that fast readmission was bad. So people coming back after having been discharged come back fast. Look, the definition of fast readmission is within 30 days after discharge. So looking at that, well, look at this. Most of them actually come back within a few days or maybe within hours. Okay, why is that then? That was interesting. The measure actually hides the real problem. And we go to see that the expertise in finding heart failure patient, it takes some time to build. You don't have it in the ER. Or the patients who, because they were short of breath, got sent to the lung clinic, or maybe ear, nose, and throat. Somewhere else, they didn't know. You didn't get the right treatment. Okay, so we need to have people who find and can do the triage. Let's set up an intermediate care level. What do they do in other parts of the world? They have something in between your hospitalization and your primary care.
Right.
And
triage for people who doesn't know what triage is.
Okay, triage is sorting patients.
Sorting
okay,
patients.
So what's your
how
what's your
urgent
problem?
do I need to fix you compared? You can wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. So setting up this intermediary care level, which was open office hours, Monday through Friday. Eventually, in our test group of 200 patients, say, among other things, here's a phone number. If you feel worried, if you feel sick, if there's something that's not right, call us. This number, no touch tones, just, it's a direct number, and there's a very competent staff that will answer.
Right.
So
in the intermediate care level, so to speak. So okay.
And the number of ER visits went down by 54%. This is a phone. And this got implemented. And then, of course, they have worked very much on expanding these things. We've increased the planned visits and decreased the unplanned visits. The reason, of course, for not putting in heart pumps was that we didn't find the patients fast enough. So they stretched out to primary care and collaborating with primary care so that we find the people with the symptoms. And 5 years later, we're putting in almost twice as many heart pumps at Karolinska as the second most active hospital in Sweden.
Oh, really?
But this story is beautiful because it's so telling that you can only get a general direction from top down, but to dissect the innovation, you need to go into the dirty, nitty-gritty details and get your blood on your shirt, so to speak. You need to get in and mix.
Get hands dirty.
Hands dirty.
And you say, okay, we need to train and educate people. Yeah, well, that didn't make much difference.
Because the problem is this little bit like, have you really understood the problem? Is the fundamental Toyota 4Y? You need to go down to the not the symptom, but the root cause.
Yes.
And to do that, you are really down working bottom up.
Yes. And
there is no shortcut here.
No, there are no shortcuts. And also there's not one silver bullet.
No. That's a good one as well. No silver bullets.
No, yeah, exactly. This phone number was one thing that helped. us, but there were many other things they did, and of course they expanded to video and what we still don't have is an NPL algorithm that can go through the EMR at the emergency room, saying that okay, so of these people waiting here, 3 are probably heart failure patients, and they should immediately go to the heart failure intermediary clinic.
Yeah, I'm thinking when we should go there to connect innovation back to the data and AI topic, because another key lessons learned in this simple story, you need the data to see the patterns and the trends, to identify the anomalies, to identify where to look. Without that, you're lost. I mean, like if you had interviews and 10 interviews, it wouldn't pop out. No. You know, this whole idea that why is so many actually coming back within hours?
Yeah,
that is something you need data on to have.
Yeah,
that's another key, I think, takeaway when I hear your story.
Yeah, it is, and understanding that people with severe conditions get worried, and if you have nowhere to turn with your worry, then you go to the ER.
Of course, makes sense when you tell it.
Yeah.